Hello everyone, Stryker here, and today I'm watching a video about the 19 factions of the Imperium. I learned a little bit about the Chaos Gods from Morlor, who is also doing this video. So I'm going to take a look as I learn more about Warhammer.
In the grim darkness of the far future, armies and warships are only the first step in assuring humanity's survival.
Ooh. Iron Man?
The Imperium contains millions of worlds, and holding it all together requires more than just guns and soldiers. It requires religious orders, secret police, assassins, and bureaucratic empires, each running a different piece of humanity's galactic empire. Just don't tell the Inquisition we showed you this. Some of these organizations don't officially exist, but this is every Imperial faction. The Imperial household is one of the most mysterious powers in the Imperium, mostly because they don't do much outside of Terra and the solar system, but it's unquestionably the most powerful entity in the Imperial government. It is the Emperor's personal domain, and yes, we know he owns the Imperium, but his household is full of organizations and offices that only take orders from the Emperor specifically and no one else. And of course, since he's a corpse, this means that the primary role of the people and war machines serving this faction is to guard the Emperor's body and his intellectual property. Sometimes this work does take members of this organization beyond just the Terran system, but it's always in service of protecting either Big E or his technology.
Got it.
Its ranks include some of the most deadly forces ever created, the Adeptus Custodes and the terrifying Ordo Sinister. Originally, the household even had authority over the Officio Assassinorum and shared command of the Sisters of Silence. At its head is, of course, the Emperor himself, and it's controlled directly by him, or at least it was when he was able to give orders. The household is far larger than just Big E's golden bodyguards. The bioalchemists and genesmiths responsible for crafting said bodyguards all serve within this organization, as do the tech enclaves of Phoebe, a moon of Saturn whose people answer directly to the Emperor rather than Mars. The Phoebans keep to themselves. They're not even technically a part of the Imperium, but their work for the Emperor has produced some incredible equipment. The famed Saturnine Terminator armor is just one of their creations.
Look at that
and
thing.
Anything else is kept very secret. But perhaps the household's most fearsome asset is the Ordo Sinister. Originally called the Titanic Tyrannic Ordo Sinister, this mini-Titan legion is a formation of 25 modified warlord titans reborn as Psi-Titans. These engines are so powerful that their mere presence can decide a war. They were given as tribute from Mars in the earliest days of the Imperium, but no Magos, no Primarch, and not even the War Master has ever commanded them. Only the Emperor gives the Ordo Sinister its orders, and during the Horus Heresy, they stood as his last horrific line of defense, a duty they still perform to this day.
I see.
They are designed to be the perfect warriors and the Emperor's companions, each one a shining example of the pinnacle of humanity in every possible subject, from philosophy to warfare. They are primarily under the umbrella of the Imperial household, and 300 of them remain inside the throne room at all times. But they are their own division as well, and form shield hosts, which are usually temporary formations to succeed in a single mission. Despite that, several permanent shield hosts exist, like the Shadow Keepers, the Solar Watch, or Emissaries Imperatus. The first duty of the Custodes is to be the Emperor's bodyguards, emissaries, security guards for the palace, and as previously mentioned, their Captain General could become a High Lord of Terra.
That must be like considered like a high honor. How do they get that? They just like fight for it, or are you just like born into that role? I imagine you had to like work really hard, to get something like that. And I wonder, is that like I'm sure there's like no cushy jobs in 40K, but I would imagine that has to be a pretty nice job, considering.
Current Captain General Valoris holding that position, but some even go as far as being his spies. The official division of these are the Epheroi, and they perform infiltration, counterintelligence, and assassination duties, as well as testing the Imperial Palace's defenses.
Their armor's very loud to be assassins.
But that's actually not the only type of spying they do, as once a Custodes is old enough to retire from active duty, they typically go out into the galaxy and set up information networks as a sort of early warning system, calling themselves the Eyes of the Emperor. And because of these sensitive duties, the Custodes have an interesting relationship with the laws of the Imperium. They don't have to follow any. They are officially under the Lex Ultima, which means everything the Custodes want to do is 100% legal. Unless, of course, the
Oh, okay. So they're like, I guess, kind of like Mass Effect's Spectres, where they're like above the laws. They can justify the means of whatever they got to do.
Emperor tells them otherwise, and
Sure,
since he doesn't
right.
seem interested in speaking lately, the Custodes are functionally lawless. It's a good thing they're on our side. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. But in this one, there is fan fusion. If you've ever walked a convention floor and felt that electric hum in the air, rows of artists, cosplayers clad like living space marines, gamers locked in battles across tabletops, then you already know the kind of energy I'm talking about. Fan Fusion is one of the largest fan conventions in the Southwest, and last year alone, it brought in 131,540 attendees over 3 days. And 2026 is set to be, we are talking June 5th through 7th, an entire hive city
that's
of
already
fandom
happened.
under one roof.
Sorry.
Comics, cosplay,
They could try
gaming,
next
pop
year.
culture in
Anyone who's
all
seeing
its
this now.
glorious forms. This year, they're expanding the experience with new activations like Game Tabletopia for tabletop gaming, Slam Fusion Wrestling, bringing the spectacle and arcade oasis for that pure retro dopamine hit. And if you've got young initiates in your household, kids 12 and under, attend free. There are Platinum VIP options if you want to go full High Lord of Terra with your access, signature shows, and more immersive programming across the floor.
That was a lot of money.
It's not just a con, it's an experience. So get your passes now, don't miss Fan Fusion, and hopefully I'll see you there. When the Emperor was sealed within the Golden Throne, the task of ruling the Imperium fell to the Senatorum Imperialis, a governing body led by the High Lords of Terra. Their council chambers sit at the heart of the Imperial Palace and is a vast amphitheater capable of holding 1 million officials, their seats rising in tiers around a central platform where the fate of humanity is decided. It looks excessive, and it is, but it's the best way to see that the Imperium contains a staggering number of departments, sub-departments, and secret departments, and representatives from each of them need to have their voice heard. Since the Custodes are the Emperor's bodyguards, the hall itself is guarded by the elite Lucifer Blacks, one of the few Militarum regiments permitted within the palace walls. Every day, they watch over nobles, diplomats, envoys, spies, Mechanicus delegates, and their armies of attendants move through its corridors. This body started as the Council of Terra, and it was created by Malcador the Sigillite, who insisted that mortal hands should help rule the Imperium. This tradition has continued into the 42nd millennium, with the Senatorum forming the main body of what is now the Council of the High Lords of Terra. Today, its highest tier is, of course, the High Lords of Terra themselves, 12 individuals who command the Imperium's fleets, armies, and institutions in the Emperor's name. 9 of these
12
seats
houses?
are almost always fixed.
Oh.
The Master of the Administratum, being the head clerk, knows just about everything down to 10 decimal places, plus he's likely the one taking the meeting minutes. The inquisitorial representation makes sure the Inquisition has a say at the big table. The ecclesiarch of the Emperor's Church is there to preach and whatever else popes do. The Grand Provost Marshal of the Arbites is the Imperium's top cop. The Praetor Novel Envoy of the Navigator household and the Master of the Stronmacan are both there to represent the Psyker organizations that keep the Imperium running. The Fabricator General of Mars and the Grand Master of Assassins both feel like they're on the council to keep them under some kind of control. And the Master of the Astra Telepathica, the organization that trains new Psykers, rounds out the 9 usual seats. The remaining 3 seats rotate among offices such as the Lord Commander Militant of the Militarum, the Lord High Admiral of the Navy, the Abbess of the Adepta Sororitas, and the Captain General of the Custodes. Below them sits a sprawling hierarchy of lesser lords whose influence rises and falls with political tides.
Makes sense.
Some have clawed their way into high lordship during moments of catastrophe, others serve as extensions of larger organizations already represented at the table. Either way, the Senatorum Imperialis is a maze of rivalries, espionage, and power plays.
I imagine so.
The Officio Assassinorum earned its near-permanent seat after its Grand Master once eliminated the entire High Lords Council in a single purge, which is a hell of a way to get elected.
Yeah.
Above even the High Lords stands the position of Imperial Regent and Lord Commander of the Imperium. Malcador first held the title during the heresy, and Rabute Gilliman used it just afterward during the Scouring, shaping the Senatorum so profoundly that later holders referred to themselves as Lord Gilliman in his honor until he was revived in late M41 and retook the position. Founded in the
Revived?
wake of the Horus Heresy, when the Emperor wasn't able to forbid religion anymore, the Church rose quickly, and by the time of the War of the Beast in M32, the Ecclesiarch, basically the Space Pope, had secured a permanent seat among the High Lords of Terra. In its early centuries, nothing restrained the Church's powers, and that led to catastrophe. The darkest chapter in its history was the Age of Apostasy, a period of near constant civil war.
Oh.
At the time, the ecclesiarchy commanded its own armies, the Frateris Templars, religious zealots whose numbers rivaled the imperial guard.
Oh.
These forces answered to individual cardinals, not Terra, and even minor theological disputes were enough to ignite sector-wide conflicts. The Age of Apostasy ended under the disastrous rule of Godfandire, who had used his position and authority to essentially take the Imperium for himself, but his tyranny quickly united humanity against him. Sebastian Thor led the Reformation, while the Adeptus Astartes and Adeptus Mechanicus laid siege to Terra itself. Vandire's reign ended when his own bodyguards, the brides of the Emperor, turned on him what they believed was sanctioned by the Emperor's will. Vandire remains one of the most despised figures in Imperial history, rivaled only by Erebus, which is saying something. After the apostasy, the ecclesiarchy was stripped of its armies and forbidden from maintaining men under arms. In order to sneak around this rule, the brides of the Emperor were reorganized into the Adepta Sororitas, the Sisters of Battle, a loophole that worked, although they did have to be reorganized as a separate division, which we'll talk about in a moment.
Okay.
Today, the ecclesiarchy remains one of the most influential factions. It oversees much of the Imperium's education through its scholas, teaches the Imperial Creed to trillions of citizens, and operates the Schola Progenium, a harsh boarding system that trains the orphaned children of Imperial heroes into elite servants of the state, including the elite Tempestus Scions and the Sisters of Battle. Across the galaxy, missionaries of the Ministorum follow close behind Imperial expansion, ensuring that wherever humanity goes, the worship of the God Emperor follows.
I see.
The Adepta Sororitas are one of the most unusual institutions in the Imperium. They are divided into two branches, the most famous being the Sisters of Battle. These warrior nuns serve as the armed
warrior
nuns?
That
and
sounds so cool.
Fight alongside the Inquisition. Their faith is so absolute that it manifests as real miracles on the battlefield, turning belief itself into a weapon.
They're like paladins?
Not very well understood by Imperial scholars. But the Sisters of Battle are only half the story. The Adepta Sororitas also includes a wide range of non-militant orders, whose work is just as vital to the Imperium's survival. The Ordo Hospitaller, for example, provides medical care to the faithful, serving both the poor and the wounded on war zones across the galaxy. While they prefer healing to killing, their devotion to the Emperor is no less fierce. And there are orders that serve in quieter roles. The Order Dialogus preserves languages and records, even studying Xenos tongues when necessary. The Order Famulos advises imperial nobility, ensuring that powerful families remain loyal to the throne. Some orders specialize in law, logistics, or administration. Yes, even sister lawyers exist in the Imperium, if you can picture that. They may not all carry bolters, but without these orders, the Imperium would collapse under the weight of its own faith. They are the primary creators of all Imperial technology. Mechanicum Forge worlds churn out weapons, armor, ammunition, void ships, everything required to wage endless wars or even to just survive in the 42nd millennium. Their religion centers around a holy trinity made up of the machine god, the motive force, and the omnissiah. And it's that last one which has a big influence on the way the priesthood functions. The omnissiah is the physical manifestation of the machine god, and luckily, most of the Mechanicum believes that the Emperor is this avatar. This very conveniently links the cult Mechanicus to the Imperial cult and makes the two organizations natural allies. But there is, of course, still politics to deal with. The Mechanicus tends to play favorites and never forgets who treats them well. A favored Forge world might appear once a century and deliver enough war gear to equip an entire Space Marine company like Forge World Anvilus did with the Blood Angels. But if the Mechanicus dislikes you, the opposite can happen, as chapters like the Marines Malevolent have discovered, sometimes being denied even basic supplies and are then forced to steal or barter for equipment wherever they can. The message is clear. Control the factories, and you control the Imperium.
That is
the
true.
Authority on technology, the Mechanicum mostly operates as the Imperium's IT personnel. As we mentioned earlier, they produce almost every scrap of equipment, but they're also responsible for upkeep, and tech priests are found in every single Imperial military and naval detachment, and they even train specially gifted space marines to do the same in their chapters. They are also the only ones who can take care of top secret installations, which means that they even preserve the Golden Throne itself, making them just as vital to the Emperor's continued existence as the custodies who guard him. The priesthood also has their own fleets and armies, all equipped with weapons far beyond what most Imperial forces can access. These include their military forces, the Scutari Legions and the Ordo Reductor, the Legio Cybernetica, and most famously, the Collegia Titanica. The Titans of the Adeptus Titanicus have a very strict hierarchy. Not even an Archmagi or Fabricator General can
That was huge!
Each Titan Legio answers only
They're
to
called
its
Titans.
own princeps, and when their aid is requested, they may simply refuse. Their independence is their greatest strength and the Imperium's greatest risk. Should the Mechanicum ever decide to act against the throne, there wouldn't be a lot that the armies of the Emperor could do about it.
Yeah.
Officially, the Inquisition exists to protect humanity at all costs, though what that means depends entirely on which Inquisitor you ask. Some root out corruption, others hunt monsters, and a few quietly believe the Emperor should be brought back, whatever the cost. The Inquisition is deliberately decentralized. It is divided into 3 major ordos, each focused on a specific existential threat. The Ordo Malleus hunts demons, the Ordo Erectus roots out heresy, mutation, and witchcraft, and the Ordo Xenos eradicates alien influence. Beyond these sit dozens of minor ordos, many dedicated to studying new dangers or monitoring Imperial institutions themselves. The Ordo Astartes and the Ordo Mechanicus keep an eye on the Space Marines and Mars respectively. And then there are divisions like the Ordo Chronos, who are tasked with making sure the way the Imperium experiences time is standardized. An Inquisitor's authority allows them to conscript almost anyone, seize entire armies, and act without oversight. They maintain personal retinues, elite stormtrooper forces, and powerful chambers militant. Forces like the Grey Knights, Death Watch, and Sisters of Battle are the most famous of these, but chapters like the Red Hunters and Exorcists also work closely with the Inquisition. With these assets, an Inquisitor can hunt, judge, and execute on site, and they are among the few individuals in the galaxy empowered to order exterminatus. If the Inquisition had a motto, it would be "the end justifies the means." That core belief has produced both heroes and monsters since Malcador the Sigillite founded the First Ordo. Inquisitors like Kryptman nearly crippled the Imperium through ruthless decisions while fighting the Tyranids, while others like Eisenhorn slowly became what they once hunted. Some, like Napoleon, turned their weapons on fellow loyalists, and others, like Erasmus Crowell, stood between humanity and annihilation. So if you ever meet an Inquisitor, you are almost certainly having a bad day, or you're about to. The Adeptus Terra is not a faction in the usual sense. It's the beating bureaucratic heart of the Imperium itself. When the High Lords make a decision, it's the Adeptus Terra that turns that decree into a galaxy-spanning process. Orders flow outward from Terra through layers of administration so vast that no single mind can truly grasp them. Entire family lines exist solely to process Imperial paperwork, and even then, the system is constantly overwhelmed. At the core of the Adeptus Terra sits the Administratum.
That's right, 'cause they don't use technology the same way.
These are the Imperium's record keepers. Tithes, population data, planetary compliance, and emergency requests all pass through its countless branches. When a world cries out for aid, its plea is logged, copied, archived, and routed upward, often long before help ever arrives. The Administratum also records everything. Its scribes are so numerous and so specialized that many are born, live, and die performing a single task: counting documents, transcribing data, or converting ancient digital records back into paper. It is a system so vast and impersonal that it borders on the inhumane, yet without it, the Imperium would collapse in days. Its most important division is the Departmentum Unitorum, the organization responsible for supplying and deploying the Astra Militarum. The Munitorum does not care about heroism, desperation, or individual worlds.
Huh.
It cares only about the wider war. Organized into the segmentum
Wider
sector and
war?
subsector commands, it decides where armies are sent, when
Oh.
they arrive, and how much support they receive. The Adeptus Astartes, or the Space Marines, are among the most feared and powerful warriors in the Imperium. The official line is that there are roughly 1,000 chapters, each with around
Whoa.
8,000 battle brothers, but that's probably a fiction to keep the Inquisition's anxiety to a minimum.
Oh,
Because of their role as the elite of humanity, Space Marines enjoy a level of autonomy almost unheard of elsewhere in the Imperium. Chapters answer only to the Emperor or the newly returned Primarchs, or sometimes the High Lords of Terra. The point is, they usually choose where they fight, when they fight, and how they wage war all by themselves. A chapter's homeworld is exempt from Imperial tithes, and in the desperate years following the fall of Cadia, many chapters have gone further, acting as feudal protectors over nearby systems. In exchange for defense, they claim resources, recruits, and supplies to sustain their eternal war. This independence is controversial, and not everyone trusts the Space Marines because of it, but it's this freedom that allows them to function so well as a fast reaction defense or assault option. Each chapter is a fully self-sufficient war machine, maintaining its own fleets, fortresses, and logistics. They are the Imperium's most mobile and decisive fighting force. The Astra Militarum, also known as the Imperial Guard, is the Imperium's main army and the hammer of the Emperor. While every Imperial world is required to raise a planetary defense force for its own protection, the Militarum exists to fight wars on a galactic scale.
Oh.
Drawn from the very best, it fields unimaginable numbers of soldiers, tanks, and artillery, all thrown into the meat grinder of eternal war. Every day, millions of guardsmen die in the Emperor's name, holding the line against horrors that no human should
God,
ever face.
imagine it be a
The
normal
Astra
dude
Militarum
in
wins wars with
40K.
attrition and overwhelming
You have like
firepower,
little armor.
grinding its enemies down inch by
You're
bloody
just
inch.
fodder.
Countless worlds supply famous regiments, each shaped by their homeworld's culture.
I mean, to be fair, like not like Space Marines last much longer either, but like man, the Space Marines have a little more armor than them. It's just like here's a chest piece and a helmet. Good luck.
The Death Corps of Krieg excel at siege warfare. The Armageddon Steel Legion are masters of mechanized combat. The Talarn Desert Raiders combine mobile warfare with some of the finest tank crews in the Imperium. Most regiments specialize in a particular style of war, making them invaluable when used correctly. Unfortunately, the Imperium is vast, and mistakes are common. Regiments trained for deserts are deployed to ice worlds. Jungle fighters are sent to barren wastelands. Entire campaigns have been lost due to catastrophic misdeployments long before the enemy ever fired a shot. Logistics are dealt with by everyone from local quartermasters all the way up to the heads of the administratum, and of course, varying levels of military leaders. Speaking of which, command of the Militarum is divided across 5 segmenta: Obscurus, Tempestus, Pacificus, Ultima, and Solar, each overseen by a Lord Commander. These segmentum lords are bound to their own regions and are not meant to command outside their jurisdiction, with one exception: the Lord Solar. Charged with defending the most important segmentum in the Imperium and Terra itself, the Lord Solar has the authority to intervene wherever the Imperium is most threatened. The most famous of these was Lord Solar Macarius, whose crusade reconquered vast swaths of lost territory. In the current age, Lord Solar Leontis carries that burden, leading efforts in the Fourth Tyrannic War and doing everything in his power to divert the Tyrannid menace away from Terra. Since the Horus Heresy, the Imperium has kept its ground and void forces strictly separate. The Imperial Navy exists to control space itself, ensuring that no single commander ever wields both armies and fleets.
That makes sense. That's
Together
probably a good
with
idea.
the Astra Militarum and the Adeptus Astartes, the Imperial Navy forms one of the 3 pillars of Imperial military power, each controlling a particular way of war and providing a system of checks and balances to ensure something like the heresy can never happen again. The Imperial Navy is the Imperium's greatest strategic asset. It is organized into vast fleets and battle groups that patrol Imperial space, suppress rebellion, and repel invasion. These formations are typically centered around a small number of powerful capital ships, often battleships, supported by cruisers, escorts, and countless auxiliary vessels.
Sorry, sorry. I guess it's kind of interesting the fact that that a lot of, well, I guess it's not United States Navy, right? But I guess it's only twice I've seen it where fictional work will use the Navy instead of the Air Force as like, I guess it's not really, doesn't really matter, but it's just interesting. Mass Effect, it's also the Navy, and just like Warhammer, I guess. Um, I guess maybe because they're called spaceships. I'm just curious about why Navy is used by default. Maybe it sounds cooler than Air Force. Yeah, that makes more sense.
Before any war can be fought on the ground, the Navy decides whether it can be fought at all. Within the wider Imperial fleet operates the Aeronautica Imperialis, responsible for atmospheric fighters and bombers. These craft support astromilitarum campaigns, protect fleet assets, and escort merchant and civil vessels through hostile regions of space. The merchant fleet and civil fleets handle the Imperium's non-military travel and trade. Many of these ships operate without navigators, and some even lack astropaths, relying
like a
instead
train.
on stable warp routes and sheer luck. Merchant vessels move the lifeblood of the Imperium, while civil fleets are often privately owned by the wealthy and powerful. So the various fleets, militarum armies, and Astartes strike forces all end up supporting each other in a web held together by orders and the relationships between high-level commanders, which makes a unified rebellion harder to achieve, but definitely makes things less efficient at the same time. The Novice Nobilitae, the great navigator houses, are the only mutants in the Imperium considered a protected class, and this isn't mercy, it's a necessity. Navigators are a special type of psyker and can perceive the warp clearly enough to guide ships through it, making interstellar travel possible. Without them, the Imperium would simply cease to exist. This role has made the navigator houses unimaginably wealthy and politically untouchable. They maintain ancient treaties and special relationships across the Imperium. Some houses are even protected by Space Marine honor guards, such as those provided by the Space Wolves. The Adeptus Arbites and even the Inquisition are very careful around them, constrained by law, tradition, and the knowledge that pushing too hard risks disaster. Despite all this privilege, the life of a navigator is grim. They are psykers of immense value and power, but their bodies are often frail and twisted by mutation. Even their lifespans are tragically short because their daily task is to stare into hell, steer a ship through it, and hope they emerge alive on the other side.
Oh gosh.
Every sanctioned psyker in Imperial service passes through its hands. To achieve this, the Astra Telepathica is divided into two main bodies: the League of Black Ships, which scours the Imperium collecting psykers as part of the Great Tithe, and the Scholastica Psychana, which then trains and grades those deemed fit to serve. Both are overseen by the Master of the Astra Telepathica, who answers directly to the High Lords. Operating alongside them is the Departamento Investigatis, better known as the Sisters of Silence. Early attempts to harvest psykers without their presence ended in disaster, and so the Null Maidens became an essential part of the Astra
Null
Telepathica,
Maidens?
despite being an independent military force who answers only to the Emperor. Their psychic blankness allows the Black Ships to function, and they personally deliver captured psykers to Terra for judgment. Those who survive classification may serve as astropaths, sanctioned battle psykers, or specialist assets for the Inquisition and Space Marines. But for many, there is no service at all. Countless psykers are deemed too dangerous to live, or are instead sacrificed to the Golden Throne, their souls consumed to sustain the Emperor. The Astra Telepathica does not save psykers, it decides how they are spent.
Oh, that's rough, buddy.
The navigators steer ships through the warp, the Astra Telepathica finds and trains psykers, and the Adeptus Astronomica exists to do something far more brutal: to burn psykers alive to keep the Astronomican shining. The Astronomican is the psychic beacon that allows navigators to orient themselves in the warp. Without it, interstellar travel becomes blind, chaotic, and often fatal. To keep this beacon alive requires tens of thousands of psykers, all of them feeding their raw power into the system. Hundreds die every single day.
Oh, man.
It is the Emperor who focuses this power, shaping the Astronomicon into a signal strong enough to be seen across the galaxy. But he can't power it without help, and those who serve there live short, unrewarded, and miserable lives. Their sacrifice is constant, anonymous, and absolutely essential.
Judges?
Not local laws or customs, and certainly not justice as most people understand it. If the faith of the Adeptus Mechanicus is technology, and the creed of the Space Marine is war, then the religion of the Adeptus Arbites is the law itself. The Arbites do not care about theft, murder, or civil disputes. They exist to ensure obedience to Terra. Any planetary governor who refuses to pay tithes, defies Imperial authority, or even fails in their duty will answer to the Arbites. And when they arrive, negotiations are already over. Arbites judges are utterly without mercy. To them, Imperial citizens do not have rights, only obligations. If you obstruct the enforcement of the Lex Imperialis, you are no longer a civilian, you are an obstacle. Arbites precincts are armed well enough to wage wars against rebellious worlds, and they have done so more than once. Perhaps most terrifying of all is their authority. When the Adeptus Arbites demand assistance, no other Imperial organization asks questions. Refusal itself is a crime. Their courthouses are not places of appeal, but fortress precincts, grim monuments to the absolute power of the God Emperor of mankind.
Man. You can't even, like, plead your case?
Each knight is a towering armored walker piloted by a single noble, bound to their machine through ancient rites and lineage. Many knight houses can trace their bloodlines back to Terra itself, their history stretching across millennia of war and oath-bound service. Over time, each household swears fealty to a greater power. Imperial knights dedicate themselves to the Golden Throne of Terra, while Mechanicus knights pledge loyalty to Mars. Those who lose their house through exile, punishment, or catastrophe abandon their heraldry and fight as the Freeblades, wandering warriors bound only by personal honor and duty. This organization makes them flexible, but definitely stands them apart from the Titan legions or other Imperial forces. And as with the Space Marines, their most bitter enemies are often their own fallen kin, traitor knights who turned against everything they once swore to protect.
Rogue
To be a rogue trader is to be a merchant prince and an emissary of the Emperor, entrusted with absolute authority beyond Imperial borders. Their mandate is simple: expand the Imperium by any means necessary, through negotiation, trade, subjugation, or destruction. Rogue traders enjoy freedoms no one else in the Imperium possesses. They are legally permitted to trade with and even employ Xenos species, a privilege unthinkable even in the Inquisition. This unchecked liberty makes them some of the most eccentric figures in the Imperium. Their power comes from the Warrant of Trade, a sacred document that grants near total independence. Some warrants are so ancient they were signed by the Emperor himself or by his pirates.
That's gotta be a
With it,
powerful.
a rogue trader stands on equal footing with chapter masters, planetary governors, and inquisitors. Naturally, the Adeptus Terra has learned to use these warriors as political tools, offering them as honors that conveniently exile rivals to the far edges of the galaxy. Those same people can act with complete independence to expand the Imperium and destabilize its enemies. In return, they are granted immense wealth and near absolute authority over their planet. That power comes with conditions. Imperial decrees must be obeyed without question. The planet's best PDF troops must be handed over to the Astra Militarum when called upon. Order must be maintained, rebellion crushed, and loyalty to the throne preserved. As long as these demands are met, Terra rarely interferes. Within those limits, a governor may rule however they wish. Some become ruthless tyrants, others are military strongmen, many govern as planetary kings, presiding over noble houses and complex webs of loyalty and betrayal. The Imperium does not care how a world is ruled, only that it serves. Each temple is a perfectly refined tool, engineered for a specific kind of death, from the long-range precision of the Vindicare to the barely contained violence of the Eversor. The Assassinorum accepts requests from across the Imperium, the High Lords of Terra to the Inquisitors and even planetary governors, though final authorization always rests at the highest levels. Once approved, a target is not arrested, negotiated with, or warned, they are removed. Each temple trains its
Dang.
assassins for a single purpose. Some specialize in infiltration and impersonation. Others are capable of collapsing regimes without ever firing a shot,
Wow.
sabotaging economies or information networks until a world devours itself. And then there are the Calexis assassins, deployed only against the most dangerous psychers and warp-touched beings in the galaxy. Imperial assassins are lethal enough to kill space marines in single combat.
Whoa.
Eldar Farseers, Chaos Champions, and planetary rulers have all fallen to them, and when the Assassinorum is unleashed, the Imperium has already decided that someone no longer deserves to exist. And there are, of course, just way too many more to mention. You have a favorite. Maybe you like the Forgotten Order of Remembrancers, who recorded history through art during the Great Crusade, or maybe the Officio Propagandum, who craft their namesake for the Imperial masses to enjoy. Whatever your choice, be sure to let us know in the comments. And while you're in there, why not look over the options for joining the Office of More Lore? Initiates help keep the Great Machine running, Battle Brothers are allowed to access early material, and Chapter Masters get their names recorded right here at the end of each video. But even if you can't join officially, giving us a like and a subscription is a good way to let the Administratum know that you're always ready for more lore.
That was pretty good. That was interesting. I guess I thought it was gonna be about the Space Marines, but either way, I was very intrigued. I knew about Adeptus Mechanicus and of course the Space Marines. I didn't know that there were so many positions. I guess it makes sense. Having something like as big as the Imperium, it's really hard to have a general. I would say it's probably almost impossible to have like a general knowledge. Having specific people do specific things is probably what keeps it a little more orderly. Uh, especially the poor people who have to transcribe things from digital to paper. Oh, that's gonna be awful. Yeah, this was really enjoyable, very insightful from more lore. I might do the Space Marines next. Anyways, keep posted. If you have any suggestions you would like to see, it doesn't have to be just War Hammer 40k. You can put in the comments below, or you can join the Discord in the description below. There'll be a link there, and you can just throw your suggestions in the video suggestions channel. Either way, thank you everyone for tuning in, and until next time, take care and have a good one. Bye bye.